Am I audible, please?
Yes, sir. You are.
Thank you. We are starting class in 5 minutes. Well, guys, this is a class which is indicated for the PG or Masters student who applied and studied in India. As I told you, you guys, you have a Pragati examination in upcoming weeks. Exam it is on the second week of July for both UG or undergraduate and PG or postgraduate, masters and bachelor. So who can remind me which question number we were stopped on in the last or in the previous lecture? In this class, which question number did we stop on? Who can remind me which question number we were on in previous lecture? Then if you don't remind me, we will not teach you. Jean-Felix Uwiragie, which question number did we stop on in our previous lecture? Eliasu, anyone can even send the message in the chat box. And I request each and everyone to mute himself, hence we can continue with our class. Mr. Eliasu Sad, please mute yourself.
We stop on
number five. Thank you. Jean-Felix Uwiragie, please mute yourself. We go consider and Theogene Nizeyimana, they are not listening again. Sorry for Not talking, just we were solving some technical errors over here. But I still see for students, they can't listen anything. Ou amusabye Maria Marie Aime, Luego Kansir, Theogène Zeimana, and Ugrimpoe Kansirt. They can't listen else. So please, if here there is anyone who has their contact, you can inform them to please open your audio device over here. Hence, you can listen whatever we are speaking. Thank you. Let we start our lecture by now, as early as possible, from question number 6.
The best replacement for it. So this is essentially, this tests your knowledge of conditionals. Whenever you have an if clause followed by a result clause, you should be able to immediately conclude that this tests your knowledge of conditionals. Let's briefly review conditionals before we look at the question. So conditionals essentially in English are of 4 kinds. We have the zero conditional, the first, the second, and the third conditionals. However, let's not discuss the zero conditional today. Let's discuss only the first, second, and the third because they are pretty common as questions on your campus recruitment tests. So the first conditional is something which we use day in and day out. It talks about what is likely to happen if if a result which leads to it happens. So if it rains, we will not play the match, or we shall not play the match. Look at that. If it rains, so you're talking about something that is likely to happen, all right? The second conditional is used to talk about the imaginary present. There is no equivalent in Indian languages to the imaginary present conditional, so you have to be super careful with it. In that, the if clause takes the simple past. So there are situations like, imagine, if I, or if it rained, which means right now it's not raining. What it means is, imagine a present in which it was raining, something like this. If I had long hair, I do not have long hair now, but I'm talking about an imaginary present, right? If I wore white, I'm not wearing white, I'm wearing black.
Excuse me, is teacher audible, please? Okay.
I wore white, I would not be visible because the screen behind me is white. So anything that is not true in the present, but as an extrapolation, as a hypothesis, when you want to put it forward, an imaginary present, an unlikely present, we use that. Then we have the unfulfilled past, something that never happened in the past, but you're just theorizing what would have happened if only it had happened. That is the third conditional. So this question draws your attention to the usage of the third conditional. She would have been more cautious tells you that she wasn't more cautious, that she wasn't more cautious, and she would have been more cautious means she wasn't. If only this condition had been fulfilled, this would have happened. So if she knew it beforehand, should be if she had known. We use the past perfect here to talk about a past action, a past condition that was never fulfilled. So your answer is option 3. Only 3 conditionals are usually tested on the examination, so it shouldn't be a big deal for you. You can just look at the syntax of all the 3 and then get them right. Let's look at the 7th question. The woman to who I sold my house was a doctor. So you have to identify the grammatically correct one from the list here. The woman to who I sold my house was a doctor. The woman that I sell my house was a doctor. The woman to whom I sold my house was a doctor. The woman who the house I sold to was a doctor. Now look at all of these. If you are a pretty fluent speaker in English, it shouldn't be very difficult for you to identify the answer. But let's look at the rules and grammar as well. To is a preposition. After a preposition, you usually have the objective cases. So you do not say, he gave the pen to I, you say, he gave the pen to me. So after to, what you need is usually the objective case of the relative pronoun. Who is the subjective case? It acts as the subject. Whom is the objective case? And whose is the possessive or the genitive. Objective is also called the accusative, sometimes the predicative. Who is called the subjective or the nominative, and whose is the possessive. So we take the objective case here because the woman to whom I sold my house. Or when you're in doubt, try to make a sentence out of the relative clause, just the relative clause there. I sold my house to a woman. So it should be, I sold my house to him or to her, right? You do not say, I sold my house to he. Therefore, it should be, I sold my house to her, and she is a doctor. If you were to make sentences out of it, you do not say, I sold my house to she. I sold my house to her. Therefore, you need a whom there. Okay. Look at the second and the fourth one. The first one is therefore wrong. The third seems to be correct. Let's look at the second one. The woman that I sell my house was a doctor. The simple present tense tells you that it is a continuous action in a way. It happens. It's a regular action. So you don't keep selling your house every day. That rules this out. The woman who the house I sold to was a doctor is unnecessarily twisted. It basically violates the simple word order in English, the general word order followed in English. So the answer is option 3. Let's look at the 8th question. The population of New Delhi is more than other cities in India. Whenever you have comparisons, is more than, make sure what is on one side is the same in its grammatical form to the other side. So you're saying the population of New Delhi should be compared to the population of other cities, not other cities. You can say New Delhi is more populous than other cities. That's fine, because you're comparing New Delhi itself to other cities. New Delhi is more populous than other cities. That's fine, because city to city comparison is okay. But the population of New Delhi is more than other cities in India is incorrect. The population of Delhi is more than that of, meaning the population of, this that refers to the population. Population of any other city in India seems to be okay. If you look at the third one, more greater is the double comparative. ER itself is the comparative degree, so more greater makes double comparative and hence incorrect. The population of Delhi is much greater than those of any other cities. And this those is used only when you have a plural. So you can say something like, the roads of New Delhi are much cleaner than those of any other city. Fine, because roads is plural, you can use those. But here, we're talking about something that is uncountable. Population, all uncountable nouns are treated as singulars. Therefore, the population of New Delhi is much greater than that of any other city in India. Is fine. Okay. So, the population of India is more than that of any other city in India is the right expression. So this is a pretty simple comparison question, not a tough grammar one. So you should be able to get this right. Let's look at the next question. Their streets are too narrow, so no parking of cars are allowed on both sides of the road. This is another question type in which a part of the sentence is underlined, and you have to identify the right replacement for it. So if you see, if you look at the options, you have are allowed and is allowed. First, we have to decide if it is are allowed or is allowed. You use are allowed when the subject is plural, because are is a plural verb. So if you ask a question, what is allowed or what is not allowed, The answer to that is parking is not allowed. You don't say cars are not allowed. Parking is not allowed. Because parking is singular, you need is allowed. Remove all options in which you have are. Is allowed on neither side, is allowed on either side. You already have a no here. So the streets are too narrow. They're pretty narrow, very narrow, excessively narrow. This word too tells you that they're excessively narrow, to an unwanted degree narrow. So, as a result of which, no parking of cars is allowed on either side of the road. You cannot say neither, because neither makes it double negative. Negative of negative is positive, thereby telling you that parking of cars is allowed on either side. So your answer should be no parking is allowed on either side. So either can mean both, either can also mean one between two. So you say either of my brothers can do it, it means both your brothers can do it. Or when you say either of my brothers is available, there it means one between those two brothers is available. So it depends on the context. Either can mean either, right? Either can mean both or one between two. Right, let's look at the next question. Ram felt very dash when he failed to score the qualifying marks in the entrance test. Pretty simple blank in terms of whether you need a positive word or negative word. Before you look at the options, look at what words you would use here. When is a good connector, telling you that when this happened, he failed to score. So when someone fails to score, you need a positive word or a negative word to describe their feelings. You definitely need a negative word. Because you need a negative word here, rule out all options which are positive. Jubilant means excited, full of energy, enthusiasm, fun. You are happy. So you say the Indian crowd was jubilant after Sachin hit a six. So jubilant is incorrect. Thrilled also is positive. As you know, thrilled is excited, enthusiastic, full of energy, full of verve, etc. So you either have bored or gloomy. Bored is negative. However, the context is different. You're bored when you do not have anything exciting to do. Here it doesn't mention that Ram did not have anything exciting to do. On the other hand, what it means is Ram failed to score, which means he should feel sad, he should feel low, his spirits should be down. So we need a word which means that. And the word that means that is precisely gloomy. Because gloomy means sad and dull, having no energy. So the answer that best fits the context is gloomy. Even if you do not know the meaning of the word gloomy, you can rule out the others, because you cannot be bored when you fail to score the qualifying marks. You cannot be jubilant or thrilled because they're both positive. Okay, so we have a pretty short passage. Let's read this and then come to the questions. Before that, let's see how many questions are based on this. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5 questions. All right, let's get started. Look at the passage. We're going to read this together, and any difficult questions that we have, we shall try to, any difficult sentences that we have, we shall try to break them down into parts and then look at the questions. Before that, there are certain words here. One is hardship and the other is prompted. Let's see the meanings as and when we arrive at these words when we read the passage. It basically helps you to remember these words, because when the moment you come across them, you can immediately come to these questions. Hardship and prompted. Let's get started. Hunger is one of the indicators of the magnitude of social injustices. Magnitude means intensity, measure, or the weight, how much something is present, of social injustices that exist in the world. Its existence can be traced back to very many years. So the author says hunger is an indicator of how much social injustice is present in the world, and hunger has been present for many years now. The French Revolution in the 18th century was driven not only by demands for political freedom, but also by the lack of bread in Paris. So this sentence highlights the role of hunger in revolutions in the past. Food has been the cause and effect of many riots occurring whenever government policies caused severe economic hardship. So food, as there is a meaning lack of food here, has been the cause and effect of many riots. You might have heard the word riot before.
Hello.
Where you have uncontrollable violence. People tend to fight with each other against the government. occurring whenever government policies cause severe economic hardship. So whenever the government caused hardship, the word that we were looking for, economic hardship, economic meaning related to money, and clashed with the basic human right to food. Let's see what word can best replace hardship here. Look at the question on hardship. Which of the following is the synonym of hardship as used in the passage? So let's try to replace this with all the words that are given. We have difficulty, one of the options. Severe economic difficulty. So when you have difficulty, economic difficulty, when you do not have enough money, obviously there will be rights, right? So difficulty can be an answer. Let's look at the other options. Dilemma, on the other hand, means you do not know which choices to choose from. So you're stuck between two choices. That is when you have a dilemma. But here, you do not have a choice. You do not have money. You do not have money to buy food. Convenience is definitely wrong because it's positive. Comfort is definitely wrong because it's positive. Between difficulty and dilemma, which of these fits better in the context is what we should decide.
Mr. Ukobukeye Vincent, you raised your hand. Do you have a question? Vincent, do you have a question? Or do you have doubt? Ukobukeye Vincent, can you hear us? If yes, do you have question or doubt? So please, you can lower your hand because you raise it up as you have question or query, but you are not speaking anything. Okay, let's continue with the class. Thank you.
Severe economic hardship. So when government policies leave you with no money, it is hardship. It is an economic difficulty. It's not a dilemma. It is not a situation in which you're stuck between two choices. So the answer should be difficulty and clashed with the basic human right to food. All right. So your answer should be difficulty here. The other word we're looking for is prompted. Let's establish that as well as we go along. Tea was a non-edible food item that was used as a protest tool by a group of Boston citizens to protest the British tax on tea imported to the colonies. So tea is being imported to the colonies, British colonies. You know, Britain basically believed in colonization and enhancing its own wealth. So tea was a non-edible food item that was used as a protest tool by the group of Boston citizens. If you've heard about something called the Boston Tea Party in American history, you would know that. The food crises around the world prompted the establishment of the World Food Program. So we have food crises. You know, crisis is a situation in which there is great difficulty. So these difficulties in procuring food and feeding the people prompted the establishment of the World Food Program. Okay, so in the light of that sentence, let's understand what could be the meaning of the word prompted. We know that the food crises have prompted the establishment of the World Food Program, implying that the word prompted should mean that the crises led to. So we need a word which means led to. Let's analyze the meanings of the words in the options here. Discouraged to discourage is to ask somebody not to do something, right? So, you know, your parents discourage you from driving too fast, etc. Encourage is to ask someone to do something or to lead something. To essentially encourage means led, right? Disposed is thrown away. So to throw away is to dispose. So you say you need to dispose of your waste in a proper manner. And dismissed means to remove someone from a position or office. He was dismissed on account of fraud, so on. So to remove from a position or office. Based on all of these, we can easily understand that the word encouraged replaces the word prompted pretty well. If you were to go back to the passage again and try to apply each of these words, discouraged, encouraged, disposed, and dismissed, we see that it's encouraged that fits the context best. So the food crises around the word prompted, meaning the food crises around the world, encouraged the establishment or led to the establishment. However, the question here asks for an antonym of the word encouraged, as you see. So the answer should be option 1, discouraged. If it were synonym, your answer would be encouraged. But because it says antonym, the answer should be discouraged. Let's go to question 12 now, as we have read. So, why was the World Food Program established? So, if you want to answer this question again, the answer to this question lies in the same sentence. It says the world food crises led to the establishment, encouraged the establishment of the World Food Program, implying that the World Food Program has been put in place, has been instituted to address the issue of global food crises. That is found directly in 4. That might be the right answer, but let's look at the other options as well. To regulate the faulty distribution of food. The distribution of food has not been mentioned anywhere in the entire passage, so that is not a great way. Besides, it's not even linked to the establishment. To utilize the surplus of resources. The passage doesn't say that there are surplus of resources and the World Food Program is established to address that issue. To eradicate discrimination in food supply. Again, a discrimination in food supply has not been mentioned in the passage as the reason for establishing the World Food Program. So your answer should be option 4. So the learning from this is, do not read the entire passage in one go. As you read, after you've completed 100 to 150 to 200 words, it fits you to kind of come to the questions and see what you can answer based on what you've heard so far or read so far, because those thoughts are still fresh in your memory, and it is easy for you to arrive at answers by looking at the fresh thoughts in your mind. If you read the passage in its entirety, it becomes difficult for you to recollect specific thoughts from the passage, which in turn leads to issues of recollection and then going back to reading, again meaning the passage is kind of not fresh in your memory. All right. Let's look at the statement again. The food crises around the world prompted the establishment. So the World Food Program was essentially established to remove the food crises around the world. Next. In addition, many other United Nations agencies have included hunger or food security in their work programs. Let's see if we can answer any other questions. The author describes the scope of hunger to be dash. And question 1, the author considers hunger as dash. Let's see. These include the United Nations Children Education Services, Program, UNDP, WHO, and the different United Nations missions to war-torn countries. The term hunger is loosely defined, and the meaning is often adapted to serve the purposes of those who may be experiencing it. So the author says the term hunger is loosely defined, right? We do not have a good definition, it's just loosely defined everywhere. And the meaning is often adapted to serve the purposes of those who may be experiencing it. So hunger is essentially an experience, according to the author. Especially in affluent countries, hunger is the gnawing pain in the stomach when a meal is missed. So when you look at affluent countries, rich countries, hunger is that pain, the biting, the chewing pain in your stomach when a meal is missed. On the other extreme, hunger is the physical depletion of those suffering from chronic undernutrition. Hunger can also mean physical depletion. Depletion is lack, reduction. So people who have not been fed well for so long, they tend to not grow well. They do not reach adequate height, or their weight is not proper. Hunger is, however, multidimensional. So according to the author, hunger is not that extreme or this extreme. It is multidimensional. It has many dimensions to it, and it encompasses, means it includes the emotional and political aspects of the society. So hunger is not just how you feel or whether you're overnourished or undernourished. Hunger is more than that, according to the author. It is emotional and political. It includes the anguish, the deep pain, the deep-rooted pain of a farmer faced with the choice of selling the produce from his farm to pay rent for the land or feeding his family with the food. So farmers, especially in developing countries as India, they're faced with the choice of selling the produce from his farm to pay rent for the land or feeding his family with the food. So whether he should sell the rice he has to feed his to pay his rent, or use the same rice to feed his family. That as well as hunger, according to the author. Hunger involves the grief of, the pain of, the sadness of, the suffering of, watching in helplessness as loved ones die for breaking the practices and policies set by a handful of elites. Elites here means the privileged people. So the privileged people, the rich ones, the educated, and the socially better off people, they break practices and policies. They basically set policies, practices and policies. And this basically causes helplessness of people who are not so elite. Now let's look at the questions. The author considers hunger as dash, a cause of revolutions, a feature worth measuring, a feature common in every culture, a feature to be ignored. So let's look at each of these. A cause of revolutions. If you look at the example here, the French Revolution in the 18th century was driven not only by political freedom but also by the lack of bread in Paris. Food has been the cause and effect of many riots as well, occurring when the government policies cause severe economic hardship. So all this tells you that food essentially could have been a cause of revolutions, hunger, a cause of revolutions. A feature worth measuring. Nowhere does the author talk about the ability to measure hunger, so that is out of scope. It's a feature common in every culture. The author never says that it's common in every culture. It says in affluent countries, hunger might be present as annoying pain. On the other extreme, in the poor countries as well, it might be present. A feature to be ignored, definitely not, because the author says hunger is something that leads to a lot of revolutions, and it is a very important factor in deciding the future of a nation. So, cause of revolutions is a very valid answer. Let's look at the last question. The author describes the scope of hunger to be dash. If you look at the scope of hunger, here the author says hunger is multidimensional. It covers many dimensions. It covers the emotional and political aspects of the society. So it is not just a lack of food. It is the pain of the farmer. It is the grief when you cannot provide for your loved ones. So with this background, let's try to look at this question. It is a mere non-availability of food. So the author definitely tells you that it is not a mere non-availability of food. Besides, it's not just a feature of poverty, because the author said even the rich people, the affluent countries have have hunger. A feature with its effects beyond the biological needs of human beings, right? So how is it beyond the biological needs? Because it also has emotional and political aspects attached to it. Therefore, it is not just this. It is not just biology. It is a disposable element, means it can be done away with in rich societies. The author says even rich societies sometimes have hunger when they feel annoying pain because their meal is delayed or because they choose not to eat. Therefore, the answer should be option 3 here. So as you keep reading, see if you can answer a few questions. That is one of the best ways in which you can maximize your score on the RCs and at the same time minimize your time. So overall, apart from the RC, I believe a lot of grammar questions and vocabulary questions, fill in the blanks questions, are relatively on the easier side for this test. If you have scored anywhere between 10 and 12, you are an above average performer. Anything better than 12 tells you that you are a very strong performer in verbal ability. Thanks a lot for paying attention to this session. If you have any questions, as always, please keep writing, mentioning them in your comments. We'll be more than happy to give.
Guys, we remain 3 minutes. Anyone has doubt or question regarding to previous lecture, and we completed the verbal courses. So from the next time, we'll start from quantitative questions. Anyone has doubt in this verbal lecture? Anyone has doubt in this verbal lecture? If yes, you can raise your hand, or you can write your question in the comment section or in the chat box. Hence, we can answer the question right now, because from the next lecture, we'll start from quantitative part. As of now, we done the questions, we done the part of verbal. Anyone has doubt, please? No one has doubt, right? Okay. So if no one has doubt, Jandamuru Nitangije, do you have doubt? Do you have doubt? Yes or no? Just 3 minutes is remaining. 2 minutes is remaining. Anyone has doubt, please you can use chat box or you can talk over here. Sorry, I can't hear you, please.
No question. It's understandable.
Good.
I say
good.
no questions. It is understandable.
Great, great. So this part of verbal is already done. From day after tomorrow, we will start the quantitative part, which is a hard part. And I guess we'll finish that part for one class. Then we'll continue for the logics for again one class. After the briefings for these 3 sections, we'll start giving you the quizzes and homeworks and exams. We're going to start giving you exams, quizzes, and CAT. So you will be able to answer Pragati exam. So after 3 lectures, which will be fully explain what you will do in exam, we will start giving you quizzes. And the quizzes will be online as well. Guys, you should focus and you should study hard. And I want you guys to score much harder than how you did it before, okay? Thank you so much, guys, for joining today's class. And we started on time and we end the lecture on time. And we'll see you day after tomorrow, because tomorrow is not your class, it's the class of undergraduate. Don't ask us when is the class. Class is always the same time at 11:30 p.m. in India. So guess from that, every day there is a class, but you have to be replaced with the UG student. Thank you so much for having me today. See you next class. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.